The other news of the day is that Jordan Willis is gone. And this one is disappointing, man. I'm really disappointed in this. I thought maybe there was a chance between Ebukam and Menahue and Willis that they would be able to re-sign one of those guys. And instead, all three of them go out the door. This is a good pickup for the Raiders for sure. Jordan Willis is a really quiet guy. He lets his play do his talking, but this guy ran 4.53 coming out of K-State. And he just became a real, big time contributor on the Niner defense and on special teams. He played at least 15 defensive snaps in every game after week 10, except for 2. He was also a big part of the coverage units. He wore 75. I really like Jordan Willis a lot. And to me, the Raiders, if you look at this as like a straight trade where the Raiders get Jordan Willis and the Niners get Cleveland Farrell, I think the Raiders won that trade easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, although I love Cleveland Farrell, I think that's a good move. We'll talk about him late. But I agree. I was very surprised the 49ers didn't bring back, Jordan Willis, again, mainly just for special teams play, not even his ability on the edge, which was a bonus for him because he was such a good special teams player. If you guys remember, obviously, the most legendary play in the playoffs from 2 years ago, the block punt, Green Bay, unbelievable divisional playoff games, scoop and score from Hufanga. Like that was the game. We couldn't score a point, and if it wasn't for that block punt, we don't win the game. And this guy was he was traded in 2020 to the Niners for a 6th-round pick, basically. Got him for nothing, and he was a very solid depth piece. I liked him. I thought we were going to at least sign him back. And you're right. If you would have told me 3 weeks ago when 49ers were going into free agency that they wouldn't have signed at least Omenihu, Ebukam, or Willis, one of those guys, I would have said, no way. The fact that they didn't get any one of those guys, it's crazy. So to me, they absolutely need to go in the draft and get some young edge rushers. Hopefully they can go and get one more of the free agents we'll talk about later. I know there's still a lot out there. Nagaku, Clowney, there's still quite a bit of edge rushers. But if you're not going to go sign Jordan Willis, maybe you're trying to save a buck or two and go through the draft because there is tons of draft talent. I mean, Andre Carter, Byron Young, BJ Ojolari. I mean, there's quite a bit of draft prospects here on the edge. They need to get some help because I love Clellan. I think he's a solid addition, but you need more guys because last year you had Ebukam and Omenihu. That was over 1,300 snaps on your team. You lost it. You're putting a lot of pressure on a guy like Drake Jackson, who I think can have a second-year leap, but we don't know. We can't guarantee Drake Jackson to take that leap. So definitely need some more depth on there. You're going to put a lot of pressure on Cleveland Farrell and Jordan Willis. But if there's one guy, or not Jordan Willis, Drake Jackson, if there's one guy that can get the most out of these defensive linemen, it's Chris Kasurik. He takes players, he develops them, and he goes and gets them paid every single year. So I'm not too worried. I mean, I would have loved to bring Jordan Willis, but I know Chris Kasurik's going to get somebody, develop them, get 5 sacks, and then they'll get paid, and then rinse, lather, repeat. So at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about it.
Well, I mean, if somebody asked me my opinion on it, I would have said at the beginning of the year or beginning of free agency, if you're trying to set yourself up, like what can you afford to let go? As much as I like Willis and Omenihu and Ebukam, I liked all 3 of those guys. When I'm looking at the draft that I'm looking at, and the number of picks the Niners have and where all these guys are slated to go, there's going to be several replacements, edge rushers that are maybe even a little bit more dynamic than the guys you just let go. Now, they're not going to be as efficient. They're not going to be, those guys are veterans who know how to play, technique and everything else. But as far as just edge rusher talent, there's a lot of edge rusher talent in this draft. And now it's just a matter of, can you handicap it? Can you pick the right guys? And we'll get into it. We'll get into that because I'm looking at, very, very deep group of edge rushers with guys that you can take in the 3rd round. I mean, you could get 4th round, 5th round, right on through to the end of the draft. So I'm not saying that their defensive linemen are easy to find, but I think if they could get one, we'll talk about free agents here in a second, but one free agent, I think they could complement the rest of it in the draft. That's how deep this draft class is.